we have. Okay. Melody, are you still there? Hello. All right. Hopefully she'll be back. Terry, I am Youngjin Yu. I'm a faculty member at the Weatherhead School of Management. Hold on, someone else is joining. At Weatherhead School of Management at Case Western Reserve University. And I've been working with Mayor Frank, for ever since he was elected, actually before he was elected. He was taking my class when he decided to run for the mayorship. And I'm glad that he's now the mayor of the town, and he's very creative and full of energy. And I was the one who introduced him to DataSwift and all this personal data, economy and so on. So when he proposed that we have a hackathon, I said I will help in any way or form or shape that I could help. So, John, thank you for joining. We're just going around the room and introducing ourselves. John, would you mind tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm John Teeter, mainly a technologist, but I'm working with Urban Systems, one of the founders of Urban Systems. We've shared ideas with DataSwift in the past, and we are focused on intelligent infrastructure for the smart city deployments, trying to reach something that will go to scale rapidly. But mainly a technical background. I was part of the National Institute of Standard and Technology NIST Global City Team Challenge startup effort. I was back at NIST as a resident computer scientist there, and I'm currently in Boise, Idaho.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for joining. Obviously, you're not a stranger to DataSwift and hackathon and so on. So that's excellent. So we are waiting for Melody to come back and join. And John, if you don't mind, and Terry, please keep the camera on, that so that we can see each other and talk while we are chatting. So today's theme, we don't have to stick to the theme per se. We are, overall theme that we are inspired by is that, how city like Elaria, which is a very typical post-industrial city in the US, quite frankly, economically struggling and trying to figure out ways go forward, right? And this is a microcosm of American society at the moment. There's a lot of challenges cities like this area is facing, and I think if we are able to do something meaningful and bring everybody forward, it will also address a lot of other issues that we are facing in the country, right? Political issues and racial and different groups of folks who do not understand. And at the cause of it, root cause of it is to a certain extent, the challenges that we face, day to day in cities like Elyria. So with that, we thought, city has received America Recovery Plan ARP fund, and I challenged, Mayor Frank, that recovery should never be the goal, because if the pre-pandemic state was a desirable status, we could recover back to where it was. But if the pre-pandemic state was not a desirable state, so we really need to go beyond recovery. And then we said, can we do something meaningful with digital technology, particularly personal data space, in a way to move our conditions to something better and beyond. And the purpose of this webinar is to have a conversation so that we can generate new ideas. Actually, we had a pretty interesting conversation yesterday and about mental health and social and mental emotional health, and how the city can play a role in creating a platform where we could encourage people to go outside more, to connect with others using some form of a game that people can play, and leveraging certain data set that the city may have. Today, we have a theme called community intervention. So it can be interpreted in many different ways. I'm not exactly sure what they had in mind when they chose this topic, community intervention. But maybe I will just invite you, Terry and John, share your thoughts and ideas and potential areas that you hope that this hackathon would address, a specific topic, specific problem, or opportunities. So I will invite you to share your thoughts, either John or Terry or Melody, if you're back.
I can go.
Terry.
Yeah, Terry, why don't you go first?
Okay, thank you. Seems like everything that the brightest objects get the most attention. The reason, one of the things, and not, if not a whole lot of the reason that Elyria is failing, is because Florida is so bright and California is so bright and Arizona is so bright, and people say, just want to go there and see what's there. Things are happening in Elyria now to put focus on different places that people have never even seen the waterfalls. This city was built because of the two waterfalls and the river that runs through it, creating power to build things and to help make food and various other things. And now people have never even seen the waterfalls. A lot of people have never even seen them. And there's so many ways that we can get people to stay if we can just decide we're going to put the spotlight on what's important in Elyria. There's too many things pulling our attention away. And I think that the community intervention depends on what community you're talking about. There's a spectator community, and then there's a doer community, and we kind of bring people in, and I think that's how we're going to get the spotlight, is community intervention of the people that see it as a problem. And I'm happy about the hackathon being available to maybe help us focus on that. That's it. I'm done.
Can you tell us? I have something in my throat. I don't know what it is. I put some mint. Hopefully, it'll calm down my throats. But Terry, can you tell? I'm not familiar with those communities that you mentioned. Can you tell maybe a little bit more so that we could maybe brainstorm together?
The different what communities? If I put the plural in the wrong spot, I was just talking about Elyria, and people that live in their hometown kind of ignore the pluses of their hometown because other communities are advertising their pluses and minuses, and we just need to find a better way to advertise ourselves.
I see. So Terry, if I may ask you, if you would put spotlight on top 3, top 5, brightest. You mentioned waterfall, of Elyria. What could be those that would generate sustainable energy of people, both in and around Elyria, so that they would focus on what's good here?
As far as the natural amenities, parks and recreation, and bike trails going through the parks and leading to the lake. And we don't have the same kind of development as the bigger cities do. So there's a lot of open sky in this town and a lot of big trees, and there's still a lot of large fields and things like that. And we're not too far from the farm country. We're really close to the farm country. And it's amazing the features that are in Elyria because of the river and different things that happened during the glacial periods and things like that, because we were kind of under the ice back in those days. And it's just hidden. I mean, we were discouraged from even getting close to the river when we were kids. It's a wonderful thing, and we were discouraged from going for various reasons. But still, we kind of have become alienated from our town. Just because of the way things are. Pandemic was mentioned. You know, the economy. It's always about the economy, it seems like.
I can contrast that a little bit, Terry. As I mentioned, I'm in Idaho, which is a fairly rural state, a very rural state. But over the past 18 months, a little bit more, the town of Boise, which is the capital, is seeing significant growth and significant changes, primarily based on influx of people. But ways that one could contrast it, we have a river running through it, the Boise River, which was 15 years ago, as you described it. Stay away from it, it's kind of dangerous. But there was a significant effort to clean it up, and now there are bike paths that run 30 miles up and down the river, which are significantly used by the community every day. Yeah. And so simply using your natural resources to draw people out and together is one organizing factor that I think is important.
Right.
And that's an asset that the city of Elyria could
and the city of Elyria is not too far from downtown Cleveland, close to lake, still fairly open space and close to the country, and then rural area. So it's a really nice spot right in between two different kind of living environment. So I just want to recognize Ken Montier. Ken, would you mind just introduce yourself and tell us who you are, where you're from, and what brought you here?
Sure. My name is Ken Mottler. I'm with Urban Systems. My partner John there was talking. I had a little trouble getting in, so I apologize for being late. On your urban system side, I tend to, my background was actually electric vehicles. Started a company called GEM and was sold it to Chrysler, and was president of that part of it for low-speed vehicles for a long time. So I tend to play on the urban system side, a lot of the mobility side, looking at smart cities, and I've done. Wolf wanted to be in on the meeting, and he said, "Ken, can you sit in?" And John, thankfully, who has much more expertise in this area than I, was there. And I thought I'd come in and listen in and see what you have to do.
Okay, great. Thanks. So I get obviously you work with Ken then, John. So
I do.
Great. Well, thank you for having. Yeah, thank you for having both of us. So Ken, we John and Terry and I were talking about what's unique about Elyria. What can we highlight that could make this community more attractive and keeping people stay on and bring more people to come in. I think, by and large, it's a somewhat similar problem across all Midwest towns. If you think about Cleveland, there is a constant struggle of keeping people in Northeast Ohio in general, right? So how can we, create people move in? I mean, I think pandemic has changed a little bit. A lot of, people who left to big cities on East and West Coast realized that, they could actually work from home and near parents' house and so on, and came back. And I don't know whether that is a sustainable strategy, relying on pandemic and then big cities are shutting down as a revival strategy. I don't think it's just, realistic, sustainable strategy. So Terry actually started going down the list of what's unique and valuable within the city like Elyria, and then he started talking about natural resource and how wonderful natural resources and geographic location that Elyria has could be potentially used as a way of attracting people in. Terry, do you see any other things that we often neglect? People in Elyria or outside Elyria don't pay enough attention to in your mind that we could celebrate and bring more attention to?
Well, absolutely. We don't ever celebrate our diversity enough.
So Tell us more about that.
Wow. I don't know how to begin without making somebody mad at me about something.
Oh, well,
But
I
it's
think it's a
just-
small group, so you know.
It's the path less traveled, that's what it is. It's a safer path. Maybe it's the more comfortable path. It's the less resistant path a lot of times to avoid a new, unfamiliar situation. So, I mean, you would go down, a beginner bicyclist would go down a brightly lit path, and a more experienced bicycle would go down a more challenging path. And we've kind of put ourselves in our little cocoons and kept to ourselves, and there's lots of various reasons for that. We need to get out. We need to rub shoulders and reintroduce ourselves to each other as a community. And I've been kind of thinking about ways to do that on the Parks and Recreation and Tourism conversation. And I've submitted a couple of projects to maybe help us reintroduce ourselves to each other if they're successful, if the projects are talked about. And so I'm hopeful for that. A lot of it has to do with diversity.
So Terry, I love that idea of, moving beyond our comfortable cocoon and comfort zones and safe space, right? And then going out and reintroduce ourselves to the people that we would not, normally encounter or interact with, and so forth, and being very, deliberate about it, right? Being very strategic about it.
Yes.
So, the purpose of today's call is really to sort of share some of these ideas and early stage ideas that you have, and, how might we make it more, attractive to other participants to the hackathon, and actually make it close to the reality, right? So we could, Terry, if you want, kind of like a brainstorm with you, and maybe pick up a couple of your ideas that you submitted, and then see if we could put some bones and flashes on those ideas to take it, next level. So when you join the hackathon on, Friday, you will have a more developed idea. If you want, we could do that, certainly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So why don't you fire off a few ideas that you have, and, Ken and John certainly are technology, smart city folks. I have done some project in, when I was at Philly, I worked with a lot of, inner city organizations. I ran big program at Temple called Urban Action Maps. That was really exciting program. So, we could, maybe put our heads together and come up with some, make your idea even better and more refined, so that it'll be very attractive.
Absolutely. Wonderful.
So Terry, tell us what you have in mind, more specific idea about community engagement.
All these places
Uh-huh.
that I know about, and maybe because when I was a kid, I was climbing the rocks in Cascade Park and I saw the waterfalls, but there's lots of other places too. There's a beautiful place I saw last night. One of them's downtown. You can see the full moon and almost 180 degrees of sky with the moon involved in it and stars, and it's right in Elyria. But I always only saw one car there, people looking at the full moon last night, the full Aries moon. It was beautiful. And there is an organization that does a pop-up circus. And I won't elaborate on that, but it's a cool little circus. And then they have a tent, and it's made out of an old blanket that you throw over a chair. It looks just like a blanket thrown over a chair with a circus. Remember the fort you used to make in the living room with the blanket and the chair? That's what this place looks like. And it's so well done. And you can fit 25 or 30 people in the thing, but it looks like a little hobbit hut. And there's a whole circus goes on in there. And I have an idea that if we had a pop-up event situation where we could take an event, all the hardware that we have, and we put it in a trailer, and we tow everything that we need, and we take it to, say, North Rec. There's lots of good fixtures at North Rec Park. And we take a pop-up street party block party, whatever you want to call it, we take it to North Rec Park. We tell them when we're coming. And when we get there, maybe we're going to have a bake sale from the neighborhood. Maybe we're going to have a talent show or two from the neighborhood. We can give free advertising to all of the businesses that are in that neighborhood with the energy from the city to promote that particular neighborhood, whether it be from a recreational center or whether it be from a waterfall, if we can get to it, or whether it be from, I don't know, the historic backyard of the women's club where there used to be an access to get to the river to take the Underground Railroad participants up to Canada. We could do an event there and we could celebrate that, and we can tell Cleveland about that, and we can tell Sandusky about that. And people will come.
Terry, I love this idea. And I'm just, as a technologist, I'm thinking how might we do this in a scalable, automated way so that we minimize the burden of planners and make it easy for anyone to discover it. And then the outcome is deliberate, strategic mingling of people with different background with the goal of getting people to know each other better.
Yeah.
Right. So, I think it could be some sort of like an app where, individual citizens can register. They could say that I'm interested in this, here's my background, and so on and on and on. So that's the demand side that we can create. On the supply side, I think the magic can happen if we have people who are proposing or providing a physical location, like a block of a community or like you mentioned, backyard of some, culturally meaningful location or city parking lot and so on. Yeah. And then there's content. So now I offer this place, or I propose we use this place. Then a system will then pop in, like a content providers. Like I do this kind of game. I have this, kind of concert. I have this kind of storytelling. So the algorithm can curate these things. And then the idea is then, we try to outreach to communities. Maybe there are different blocks where they are divided because they are different sort of race or different socioeconomic status and so on. So the plan is, under this like entertainment and food, you deliberately bring different communities together. That's the plan. So people don't know, but the algorithm is deliberately generating participant invitation based on the goal of like, we want to create, even to the seat level. You don't sit with the people that you know and feel comfortable. Right. I mean, in a way that you're creating a seat arrangement in a way that you want to create this encounter with people that are different from you, that are different background, different neighborhood, and the goal is that you end up like, wow, I made a whole bunch of new friends. I think that kind of app could be done, and people can share their background, and kids can become friends, and they bike to the other neighborhood to hang out with kids there, and that'll be wonderful.
I think that somebody used to say to me all the time that life is not delivered. You have to go out and get it. There's lots of other places in town that are just as attractive and undiscovered, and I certainly don't know all of them, but we can sure ask. We can ask the community where the next one needs to be.
Right.
People won't necessarily go to a community, free will, but if there's a party going on there and they are invited to that community by that community, and there's a couple bake sales there, and there's this and that there, and maybe there's a talent show, and maybe there's a pet show, and just everything that makes that neighborhood what it is. Give them a month to get ready for it, or give them 2, however long. That's all in the intricate details. But I just think that people will line up to be part of that.
Yeah, John, you were going to say something.
I don't know if it's quite relevant, but in the early 90s when the net was just kind of becoming aware or alive, I did an experiment with community focused interactive platforms, I guess I would say. I took it was not as large as your town, Terry, but it was a town of 20,000 people. And so I brought up a internet service provider that was free and allowed people to begin to interact. Started a group at that time, this was 1990, so it was Vision 2020 was the focal group. And started it up to try to set a vision for that community for the year 2020. And found that one of the keys to success of any of these kind of social magnets is a hot molecule or a thing that catalyzes the community to action. And it's not necessarily possible to do from the outside. But if you can identify the hot molecules in your social organizations, in your community, and let them have the resources to bring things forward, they will coalesce people around them, around their topics. And it works a little better than trying to, put something out there and hope they will come.
I 100% agree. So, from a supply side, think about some, I don't know, some restaurants and breweries or some, bookstore, neighborhood bookstore, like talent organization. Because, what I'm thinking is, John, as I was listening what Terry was saying, there's so much tension going on in our lives nowadays, right? I mean, we're divided in all possible ways, all imaginable ways, right? But yet what we are not talking about is how much do we actually share certain things and enjoy in our lives? Like we all enjoy good food. We can all laugh at good humor.
But we all can't afford good food. And so it may be that you are putting up something that is aspirational for half of your population, that becomes a negative rather than a positive. Whereas if you went to the population that has the skills of providing good food, if they had the resources to do it, they would bring up their own community kitchen that would coalesce people.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I was talking about. So what I'm thinking is that can we identify those, like what you call social magnet, organization as a platform, and then they come in and then they become the anchor. But then there are others who can complement them with their own things. But there are certain things that they could offer, but everybody can enjoy their offering and bring their own things to enhance. But I think that could create a forum where people could come and celebrate what we all enjoy rather than amplifying what we disagree on, And I think that's like, we have a community, our block party every year. And, of course, we have, neighbors who disagree on many different things. But, during that block party, we all enjoy, laugh and, and so on. I mean, I think, Terry, what you're saying is that, there are a lot of really hidden gems in cities where people can be drawn into. City can certainly play a role. Some citizens may discover some areas like this could be a really good spot where people could all come and celebrate. Then city would then, make that happen and then have this kind of social anchor organizations who then say, yeah, I will bring our community kitchen here. We'll put it up. And then there's other things that can be added. And then invitation will go out to the communities who would not commingle, unless there's very intentional invitation and plan to create such interactions or something like that,
And electric bikes. Go, Ken.
And
Well, I apologize for being late. I'd really like to see your city. Look forward to the opportunity to seeing it. I'm gonna a little background on what we found when I was dealing with low-speed vehicles inside cities, and that's what actually got me involved in smart cities. Is that when life is movement. Life is actually, it becomes exciting when things are happening around you. And what we found was that people in cars, big cars, had a tendency to, you would see the car and not the person. And you actually deadened life around your area because people actually sit. And once we got people on bicycles and scooters and other forms of means that to transport, all of a sudden the city became much more alive. I was in Columbus a few months ago, and I'm just downtown Columbus, and people, just walking around and talking and going to stores had such a big effect on the feeling. So some way of tying in some means of having people come around, and whether it's aggregating the bike apps or what we call Main Street, having a Main Street idea of having people that move and different ways of connecting people inside that. And as John said, things that are not expensive, that are ways of making the community exciting, just vibrant inside. So it isn't just the event that drags them to the event. It's actually all the activity that occurs within the city around it. Mm-hmm. So we're seeing in Portland, at least, I think we have more parks than just about anybody that I know of. And we see this movement inside the parks and the community and the travel in between the parks being actually a big deal now. So I do think using technology together with how we interface and allow somebody to easily move around the city in different transportation methods actually brings the city closer together. I don't know.
Harry, any reaction to so far?
Yeah. We have extra challenges too, because our town is divided by two branches over the river, and then the main river that after the north of the confluence. So we're divided that way. And then we have north, south, east, and west. And our quadrants are divided that way as well with our parks and recreation system. We have north rec and south rec, east rec, and west rec. And that gives more people a reason to divide things. And I think that if we highlighted things in certain ways, it would be better than north, south, east, and west. We have a longtime city councilman who was periodically the mayor for not too long, but long enough to be on the list and have his picture in City Hall. And he was a proponent of getting South Rec developed, but yet it's called South Rec. It should be called Thomas Shores Rec Center. And then we could eliminate the south, and north should be the same, and east should be the same, and west should be the same, because people are able, there's always somebody. I don't even need to finish that sentence. There's always somebody that's going to make something out of whatever you put down there. So I think we should just highlight everything that we can. We should illuminate it. Start there.
I'll give another example. Since you have the rivers as assets, use them. I mean, bike paths on each side of the river sound like a natural thing. 2 bridges over those rivers would bridge the communities. And I would look to what's happening in the Anacostia River in Washington, D.C., which is basically a big divider and equity divider in that city. But by simply bridging and cleaning that river, they've made it an attraction rather than a dispersal item. Mm-hmm. And I'd say the second thing is for activities on the river, bikes are one thing, but if you go down to the Boise River, starting, I think, like second week in May, something early May, late spring, all the way through to October, every day on that river, there are people floating down a 6-mile stretch of that river on tubes, which is fully supported by the Parks and Recreation. They run vehicles to take people back to the parking lots upstream, etc. But on major event days, there are thousands of people on the river floating down seeing their neighbors happy and staying cool in the heat. So it's leveraging the assets you have against the attractions that might bring people together into not necessarily pre-planned activities, but just making it available activity.
Yes, or serendipitous type of an
Right.
event, something that just can just happen.
And these events these small kind of incremental changes tend to create jobs because they're local. They're not stuff that the big guys come in to do. And I think that's still critical to keeping people home. You know, is there jobs there that are interesting and can move
I
forward?
mean, I can see that whole ecosystem growing around that river, the bike trails and this tube. And, there's a small shuttle service that needs to take people up. And there's a small, like a hot dog station up and down and, and so forth. And bike shops and ice cream shops.
We have pop-up foods centers along the river now next to the bike path.
Sure.
Breweries and wineries are establishing themselves there because that's where the people are. We've had a donation to put a small water feature into the river, which is really, it's a world-class whitewater river course that is open to the public all the time. And it's amazing the number of people that just go down to watch the people doing the whitewater stuff. So it's something that brings people out. And once they're out, they can communicate and start thinking about what their community needs to be. The other thing that you should be well aware of, and we're affected here more than I would have thought, is the non-workplace work that's happening all over the country. We ran this house was open as Airbnb for 2 years, I think, while this was just beginning. And we had people coming in and renting it for a month just to work here for a month. And then they'd move on, the digital nomad types. And so Airbnb as an application tends to be something that could draw people, not Airbnb in particular, and that I wouldn't suggest that, but a community sourced and the community maintained shared use infrastructure, which allows people to use the infrastructure to do things locally that they may have had to go to the larger city to do before. That kind of things that keeps people there and also keeps them aware of their neighbors and their community. One other small thing that I would say relative to experimentation that I mentioned earlier with the town of 20,000 people, the ISP was not successful until I charged $5 a month for it. And then it became very successful. When it was free, people didn't think it was of any value, but a minimal cost. And at that time, I think AOL was charging $15 a month or something like that. As long as I stayed under AOL, everybody was quite happy to keep the money local and flowing in the community. So instead of every household ejecting $100 a month out to their ISP, which happens to be, in some unknown corporate headquarters, a local ISP, much aligned with the concept of a utility, a municipally owned utility, would be a great asset to any community, I think, and a magnet that would draw people there.
So so there's a mixture of creating a sort of this infrastructure, physical infrastructure that could create more activities, unplanned activities, and bring people out to engage with one another in an unplanned way. And then also we could mix that with also some planned events using those places as well as some other, underutilized physical assets that people might, different community people might find interesting. And, I guess, the key here in my mind is having a deliberate sort of a strategic plan to create an outcome that would draw people out and interact with one another that they would not interact otherwise, with people that they would not interact otherwise.
So thinking in terms of hackathons, if you were to rapidly put in place the Facebook replacement, I'll just call it that. And I use that just as not as a particular comment about Facebook, but as the localized version of what Facebook is doing for communities that are not spatially located together. Another experiment I ran was to bring up a global platform for people that were interested in a very targeted sport. And that allowed people throughout the world to find a home that was a place where they could share common interests. And the reason that I wanted to experiment between localized spatial focus and non-spatially topically focused was to see which one had longer legs, basically, which one was more effective. And what I found really was that things like MySpace and Facebook came along that allowed very easy setup of both of those two things. And one could say that the next generation Facebook will be the municipal collaboration platform, and it will be the thing that, for example, in a hackathon you could bring up in a weekend. So that might be something to consider.
So how is that different from John Nextdoor? Is that Nextdoor? There's a platform, right?
Nextdoor is a good example of that has been franchised, or not really franchised, but it's a local focus that takes you to places where your community, like we have a North End neighborhood here that's our issues, you know, it is on a global platform. Those kinds of things are business opportunities. Obviously, that's kind of not a taken space now, but a very competitive space. You can augment that with localized advertising as your local newspapers have kind of evaporated. Your local advertising streams have that's another example of money leaving your economy,
right.
Going outside, that you could keep local if you had the right infrastructure to support it. And the city is the primary jurisdictional point to actually do all that. It's just that it's kind of expensive for cities of 50,000 and less to afford to do it at a world-class level. But hackathons can bring that forth. Franchising other platforms can bring that forth, and open source implementations can bring it forth as well. If we have a chance to talk with DataSwift, their infrastructure for, which is what I'm really looking forward to hearing about, their infrastructure for privatization and socialization kind of mixes those two things. They're an important point, an important necessary part of the infrastructure that I think a municipal, virtual municipal information source is, all the words get jumbled up, but what it's kind of part of what's needed.
Yeah, so I think the challenge, I think, is economic sustainability, as you mentioned, and scalability, right? You know, so the each municipal city focus, you know, the network, you know, the creation is one, maintaining and creating enough energy into it. So I think there, I like the idea. I think it's a model that we haven't seen recently. I think there in the early days of the internet, there was a lot of efforts on creating small virtual sort of community, you know, here and there. They were largely unconnected, right, from one another. You know, so I'm quite familiar with some of those early efforts. Technology have come a long way, and kind of like you know, Facebook kind of sucked all the air out of all the people's mind. So we kind of like use Facebook as an alternative to do what we were trying to do. And it's very easy, right? Because pretty much everybody's on it. We know we love to hate Facebook, yet at the same time, we kind of like depend on it. And at the same time, it's ironic in a way. So the creating a Facebook alternative for, you know, rich community, like, you know, like Facebook, you could find out all the interest group in your neighbor. You can buy and sell stuff. You could do all kinds of stuff on your own, and with very little efforts to do that. I think it's a really interesting idea. How might we replace Facebook to do everything that we are currently doing in Facebook with my neighbors and in our neighborhoods. So, Terry, there's exciting music going on behind you.
Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. We have about
God.
9 minutes left on our clock. We don't have to spend that all 9 minutes here, but I want to make sure that we discussed any ideas, any other ideas that you may have. Terry, you do you have other ideas that you want to float here, and maybe get John and Ken get excited about, and then maybe they can help us to take that idea to the next level.
I am working on something, but I don't know. It's years and years ago, we had an event. It was 5 years in a row, and we had it, and it was called the Duck Derby. And you've probably seen that, the little floating yellow ducks that go down, and you buy a duck or 2 ducks or however many ducks you want, and that gives you a chance to win the race going down the water sluice. And so what we have is we have the Black River, which has its own problems. It's real wide, so you can only see it from one side. The flow is very unpredictable. And they did it 5 years in a row. It raised a lot of money, but it was unmanageable, and they couldn't get it to work properly, and it was embarrassing is what it was. I'll explain that when we have more time. But at any rate, I saw in one of our metro parks, in one of our city parks, a stream that you could almost hop across with real good flow, and able to put a lock in it to stop the flow for however long you wanted to. And you could, using the natural landscape and everything that's there without really doing anything except possibly putting up a small walkway, and brightening it up a little bit, you could put a spot right there in the middle of that park for a feature that would be almost like straight out of an amusement park, but it would be real. It wouldn't have any artificial animals. It wouldn't have anything artificial at all. And you could take that spot and you could have the Duck Derby right there for anybody that wanted to have a fundraiser Duck Derby right in the middle of this city park in Elyria. And it happens to be in the neighborhood where there are 18 churches, the Polish club, the football sports complex, the AMVETS, the VFW, the Elyria High School. What am I missing? There's at least 3 major stores in the place. There's the Boys and Girls Club. There's 4, 5, 6 Elyria Fence and Implement and things like that. Kind of, major thing. Employers, maybe 25 or 45 people, employers up and down. There's health and dentistry. There's all kinds of stuff there. If you can't get enough people out of 18 churches that want to have a fundraiser, and you just give them the spot, I don't know, you're not selling it right.
Oh, I don't know. Getting 18 churches to sit down in the same spot and talk to each other might be difficult, depending on the churches.
That's true. They might decide to get one church.
I doubt that.
My point is that there's a lot of word of mouth capability in this town. There's an awful lot of access. We just we haven't been looking at it right.
Well, I think that's really intriguing idea. That I had no idea. Elyria had such a like a strategic place where you could leverage to do such a thing and events. So Terry, I could see that you're very much like running, and your brain is running toward that direction. Organizing and event. And
It's a threat. I mean, it's a curse. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. But you know, sometimes the why we like organic, ongoing sort of like integrations, but this type of deliberate, intentional events, well planned, could serve as a jumpstart of many of these and booster. So I think there is an opportunity to think through these type of things. I hope Terry, you will bring those ideas to the hackathon this weekend and share your ideas and get people excited and and work on your ideas. So that'll be great.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I was wondering about the duck derby on the stream rather than in the middle of a big river. It was real funny because there wasn't any flow in the river, and they sold the heck out of this thing, and there wasn't any flow at all. And there's people on both sides of the river. They're all watching it. There's no flow, and they called the river rescue team from Elyria Fire Department with their big rafts, and they put their rafts in trying to make waves to move these ducks. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. We don't have to ever do that again. We can use this little stream that happens to be in the middle of the woods underneath of about 15 or 20 80-foot oak trees.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly one of the examples that comes to my mind where, the residents, the citizens can, recommend and create. Like, we could do this for those who are not aware of such opportunities, right? The city then can take a look and make it happen and bring it to the next level. I think that could be a really interesting, opportunity. So, John and Ken, are you guys planning to join the hackathon over the weekend?
Well, not I. No, I wasn't aware of it, actually.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So we have a hackathon starting this Friday at 5:00. And the students and faculty staff of Case Western will join. I don't know how many will show up, but we know that some will show up. I will be there, and then our provost will be there to welcome people. And then Saturday and Sunday all day there will be a hackathon and webinars, and there are some speakers who will be speaking throughout the day, and and people like Terry and myself will be hack it out, and then we'll do the presentation. The city will give out prize dollars, and then Case will incubate some of the civic startups at our campus, on our campus, and support them so that they will become viable service that actually does exist. So if you have time, Ken, John, feel free to join and help these teams to move beyond their initial stage.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. Well, Terry, thank you so much. John, Ken, thank you for stopping by. This was wonderful. And I hope, look forward to seeing you all on Friday.
It was wonderful. Thank you.
All right. Thank
Thanks.
you. All right.
Bye.
Take care.